Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Toth. I'm the founder of C3 Technology Advisors. We've got a fairly large panel here to discuss a range of technology issues today. So C3 Technology Advisors, we are a technology and business consulting firm. So in a world of constant change, our research, analysis, proprietary tools, price benchmarking, client interviews and survey data, and extensive back office give our clients the perspective and insight needed to make intelligent buying decisions. We really provide a data-driven approach to help our clients in evaluating vendors, purchase at the right prices, and just kind of avoid wasting time. When enterprises want to collaborate with experts instead of being sold at from salespeople, they typically call us. So these are the technologies that we really focus on. There's about 7 or so. UC as a service, cloud infrastructure, DR, colocation, cybersecurity, SD-WAN, contact center, and traditional telecom. So we go to the next slide. So as you look at our organization and compare it to other organizations out there, everything from technology companies to VARs to technology brokers to Gartner, this is how we differentiate ourselves versus those other folks. So not too much to speak to here. Some of the things I've already spoken to, but again, in-house engineers, project managers, post-sale support, etc. So before I start kicking it over to some of our other panelists, there's a couple of things that I've been thinking about in preparation for this webinar today, and how the world has changed and how we think the world is going to be changing moving forward. So a couple of items that we really came up were this. We think that what you do and where you do it will be decoupled. So, oftentimes you have an organization that's based in Chicago and they're hiring Chicago folks. You have an organization that's based in Detroit or based in New York and they hire folks from there. We think where you're based and what you're doing and where you do it from will be decoupled. So you'll just be able to hire people remotely and they can be wherever in the United States. We think it's going to be really important to not only maximize employee productivity, but also to measure employee productivity using a plethora of tools, some of which we'll be talking about today. You really need to get a grasp on how you're going to enable these people and then also measure their performance. We think as well, number 3, we think employees are going to demand a great experience working from home. I think it's going to go beyond, well, just use your computer and set up a desk and you're all set working from home. I think they're going to demand an experience, and I think they have a right to do that. Organizations are going to spend less on real estate, less on buildings and structures to house people. What does that mean? That means that those dollars need to be reallocated to ensure that the people working from home are essentially receiving the benefit and the allocation of capital that used to go into structures and real estate. The last one is, we think the world is going to pick winners and losers quickly. I don't think organizations have the time to sit back and say, let's see how these things shake out. Organizations are going to go out of business, and the great rehiring of America when COVID-19 does, to a certain extent, subside, is going to happen, and people are going to be rehired in waves, and they're going to ask harder questions. So I don't think a lot of our clients have the time to sit back. They need to make decisions. They need to take actions now and early in the future to beat their competitors. So, and if you don't, I think you might find yourself in the short end of the stick. So, with that said, we're going to shoot it over to Ryan Dengate, and Ryan is our primary engineer here for all things data center and cybersecurity. So Ryan, please take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us. Ryan Dengate here from C3, one of the technical engineers on staff with C3 to help bridge together the technology and the culture and all this to get our customers the right fit. Just real quickly, my three key areas of focus are cybersecurity, infrastructure as a service, which includes cloud services like we'll talk about today, and then everything backup and DR related. So a lot of hot topics, had a lot of great conversations. And that's really why we asked Franco to come from Pax8 to help us. And I think one thing that we've really seen in response to COVID is that it's shown us that cloud-based collaboration tools work. They work to keep us connected together, to share information, and wherever that is on your cloud journey or your digital transformation, it looks different to every organization. Being nimble and agile to be able to change quickly to the business needs wherever it goes. Having a partner like Pax8 and some of these solutions, I think will really help accelerate and streamline that journey. So Franco, I'd like you to, introduce yourself and let's get the conversation started here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan. I apologize for not being able to get my camera working here, so I'm having technical difficulties on my end. I'd love to say you guys are missing a lot by not seeing me, but unfortunately not so much. But yeah, so my name is Franco Martinez. I'm the partner development manager with Pax8. And basically Pax8 is a cloud distribution company. And what we do is we really simplify the way organizations buy, sell, and manage cloud solutions. And we do that by empowering our partners like C3 to achieve more with cloud technology. And our Born in the Cloud platform, it truly does modernize your cloud journey with consolidated billing, with automated provisioning, and also industry-leading PSA integrations. And on top of that, our technology is truly backed by our Wingman experience that provides responsive support alongside education and resources that you'll need to grow your cloud business. And so, there's a lot of CSPs that are out there, and really kind of how we differentiate ourselves from the pack. And what we're really seeing right now within our economy really is unpredictability. And a lot of times, in the past, the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement was really the way to go because they could provide certain premium support at a certain cost point. And what we've really seen, and what I've really seen, is a lot of CIOs, a lot of organizations are really wanting to take a look at the flexibility that CSP really provides. And so, what CSP is it stands for Cloud Solutions Provider, and it really is, providing, licensing, right-sizing your environment. We provide superior Wingman support, which is at no additional cost, and it's on a month-to-month consumption model. And so, obviously, given the landscape of our world today, it's really tough to be able to predict. 6 months down the road, let alone a couple years, 2-3 years down the road. And typically, EA agreements are signed in a 3-year contract. What Microsoft really is pushing is for that SMB to medium enterprise customer, even up into the enterprise space, is to really look at going that CSP route with partners like Pax8 for the flexibility, for the customer experience. And really for that, that month-to-month consumption model where we can hopefully grab those relationships and continue to grow them. And over the past 2 years, let's call it, we've actually sold or managed or brought more licenses to Microsoft than any other CSP on the planet. So overall, I mean, again, like I said, the difference between the CSP and the old EA agreements was really on the cost of support. When you work with Pax8, you're going to get what we call the Wingman experience. This is an extension of your IT team, right? And we're going to be basically providing you with resources that are Microsoft certified specialists to assist in troubleshooting and resolving issues, tier 1 support all the way up through vendor escalation. What you don't have to worry about is an annual commit. Again, we price it on a month-to-month basis. Just to give you an example, if you have a client today, or if you are, around a couple hundred licenses within your environment, and you need to fluctuate, and 6 months down the road, you need to scale down, 50 licenses. With an EA agreement, you're still going to have to pay for that overall initial commit that you made when you actually signed that EA agreement. Whereas the difference with working with Pax8 and CSP is as soon as you make that downtick, the very next month it trues up, and so you're only paying for what you're using, right? And so again, that flexibility is really the draw that I see a lot of CIOs and a lot of organizations today really look to, go the route of CSP versus where in the past they would have traditionally gone, the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement route.
So Franco, one question that popped up. If my organization has an EA agreement now, can they switch to a CSP, or do you have to wait until the end of the contract?
Yeah, so currently, that's unfortunately they have to wait until the end of that contract. The time to really start those conversations is probably anywhere from 6 to 3 months ahead of time before they start obviously looking at making that change. But yeah, we do have to wait until the enterprise agreement is up to make that switch. But that's a great question.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so just to add on to what the services and really the value add of PAX 8. Again, we have about 45 architects that are constantly pushing out updates on our portal. The idea is really to simplify that experience for our customers, and so we've created a portal where it's real simple to get into the customer admin portal, add licenses, change licenses, take them away, and again, it's real time. And so as soon as you make that change, it goes real time into effect. Really no disruption at all to the clients. And then we're providing a month-to-month consumption model. The other benefit of working with PAX 8 is we really consolidate the amount of bills you get from Microsoft. I had a director of IT the other day tell me that he spent anywhere from 8 to 10 months or hours a month just reconciling his Microsoft bill. And I'm talking about a customer that was around 100 licenses, and they received about 30 different bills from Microsoft because they don't co-terminate. And so a lot of time, because of that situation and because it is hard to kind of reconcile your bill on a monthly basis, what I typically find is that customers don't know what they have or what they don't have. And a lot of times I find licenses that aren't being used at all that they've been paying on. Again, in that enterprise agreement scope, in that type of situation, you have to wait, and you're still going to be paying on those licenses till the end of that contract. And again, that is a huge draw for customers wanting to go CSP versus EA, is really that true flexibility. So.
Yeah, great. So Franco, in our last minute here, maybe some final thoughts, and one that's in mind is you mentioned there's a lot more other that PAX 8 can help with. Maybe what are some other areas that you're seeing companies use and companies shift towards PAX 8 more?
Yeah, I'm really seeing a lot of companies, inquire about Azure, right? It's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and there are some applications that run and function better, native in the cloud versus on premises, and so we have an Azure practice built out. And so we're getting a lot of questions in regards to that. And then the last is security, right? We provide security-focused vendors like endpoint detect and response, security awareness training, and again, all of that is still built into that month-to-month consumption model, and then layered on with our PAX 8 Wingman support that is at no additional cost.
Great. So kind of a one-stop shop. That cloud distribution helps simplify everything, but then, I mean, from my background, having that the IT support behind you can really kind of make or break all these changes going on. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to launch it back over to Taylor and Joe, where there's going to be a poll. And I'll see you after the next segment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
And let's just briefly share these responses. So definitely very interesting. Looks like 57% of you have moved 100% to Microsoft CSP licensing. So definitely, again, very interesting, great use. I'm actually going to now turn it over to Joe. So go ahead, Joe Mauk.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, everybody, for joining. I will make my introduction quick because I know we're moving quickly through this, but I am also a sales engineer here at C3, managing our UCaaS, CCaaS, and SD-WAN disciplines. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jerry Young from Kato Networks and give him a few minutes to go through his presentation.
All right, there we go. Perfect. So yeah, my name is Jerry Young. I am the Senior Solution Engineer for the Midwest here at Kato Networks. Next slide, please. So briefly, let me give a brief overview of who Kato Networks is for the audience. So essentially, Kato Networks started by two gentlemen Shlomo Kramer and Ger Schatz. Shlomo Kramer was one of the original founders of the firewall. And the whole idea of Kato Networks is that we were going to make a solution that was a little unique to the marketplace when it came specifically to SD-WAN. And as you can see, we've got about $200 million worth of funding from some top-tier venture capital firms to support this infrastructure. We've been around for about 5 years, and you can see we have over 500 enterprise-based companies that we're now supporting, in over 100 companies, with close to 5,000 branches now in existence. Next slide, please. All right, so I like to lead with this quote because I think it's a good way of explaining the marketplace, and it's one provided by Gartner. So after decades of focusing on networking, performance, and features, future networking innovations will target operational simplicity, automation, reliability, and flexible business models. So the whole concept of Kato is it's a SASE-based platform. If you guys are not familiar, SASE is Secure Access Service Edge. So it's essentially what it is it's taking all of the things that we traditionally had as endpoint devices, traditionally boxes at the edge, and converging them all into a simple stack that exists in the cloud. So SASE service will converge a number of different network security resources, SD-WAN, Secure Web Gateway, CASB, SDP, DNS protection, and firewall as a service, and basically migrate all of those technologies up into a cloud to have a single platform that's easy to manage, easy to control. Things that you've traditionally seen happening with, whether it be email or CRM or even what Pax8 just described with Microsoft and Office licensing. So to validate that solution, we have 58 currently different points of presence that exist throughout the world, and you can see that these are those locations, and we have tier 1 connections that interconnect all these different locations together. So where we can add a lot of value is because those locations are all intertwined together and connected together. You as the customer, when getting access into the cloud portal, can really leverage our middle mile, our backbone that is SLA driven, to really optimize not only your cloud performance, but also your traffic between all of your branch locations. So it's kind of the next iteration of SD-WAN, if you will.
Yeah, and Jerry, that next iteration of SD-WAN is SASE. We're hearing that a lot from different vendors. Why do you think a lot of the larger SD-WAN companies are moving towards a SASE platform?
I think that Gartner really hit the nail on the head when they described the way that the market is going. I think digital transformation has played huge roles in these shifts, and you see it in some of the top tier players, right? You saw Palo Alto acquire CloudGenix, and you've seen Cisco now talking about a SASE strategy, Versa is now talking about a SASE strategy, VeloCloud is talking about a SASE strategy as well. So a lot of top tier players are all moving in this direction because realistically, it's all about simplifying it, right? We're looking at the structure that everything is super complex. Let's remove the complexity and really make it a lot easier to manage and maintain.
I can't agree more. I think that single box, that single solution is definitely where everyone needs to be looking. And while we look at this map with all of your POPs throughout the world, what are some relevant business problems that Kato is able to solve?
Yeah, I'm especially with the way that things are going today, the way that the world is today. The biggest value for me is not only do you have this middle mile that you get to leverage, and in SASE, we didn't really get into the details, includes not just regular edge solutions, but also VPN. So as we talk about the changes in the way that business strategies are potentially moving in a different direction, like Matthew talked about at the beginning of the discussion here, what Kato does is it really gives you the flexibility to be able to support that no matter what it is, and allows you to extend out. So digital transformation is now we're moving all these resources to all these different places. Security is obviously a big concern, and being able to extend that security out and support those resources no matter where they're at, has played huge dividends for the customer base that we support today.
And I think that's a key item right there too, Jerry, is the way that Kato addresses network access versus that traditional centralized VPN concentrator. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a second to hit on that.
Sure. we have our own VPN client. Pretty much everything that Kato does is made in-house, but we have a VPN client that customers can leverage. And the nice thing about this, right, you see on the screen, we've got the 58 POPs that exist throughout the world. When you click connect with our VPN, you're going to connect to the location that's closest to where you're at. And so like unlike a traditional VPN, where you're relying on the open internet to allow the communication between your sites, or you're maybe backhauling back to one centralized location, and it's not the most efficient route. The great thing about Kato is if I'm in Europe traveling for business, I'm going to find the POP that's closest to where I'm at, connect there, and I'm going to leverage that middle mile and have a much more resilient SLA-driven backbone to communicate with.
You know, and that kind of brings me to another point, you know, as far as we have people that are working from home now, and I want to take this a little bit different direction, Jerry, is not only do you, if you're using that VPN client connecting to the closest POP, but take a second and talk about the fact that you can now use Kato's network to egress one of the closest POPs to maybe whatever SaaS environment that you're looking to get to, and how this would help with a work from home user.
Yeah, so since it's a completely different approach, right? You can create policies that are specifically driven to those SaaS applications, and I can make them geo-driven. Not only that, each and every one of the POPs also will terminate the TCP session, so we can mitigate the effects of latency that traditionally plague international organizations, and be able to support not only the cloud but also their internal resources a lot more effectively.
Absolutely. I think we have about 60 seconds left. Just real quick, is there anything else that you'd like to hit on and how Kato can help IT departments or companies be more flexible in this move to work from home?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the solution is concerned, there's a lot of flexibility there, right? If it's an organization that has resources that are working from home that they need to be more concerned with, people within the organization they need to be more concerned with, we can take a small appliance and put it out at their office location, set up redundancy built into the config, add multiple internet connections, and really transform those home users into a much more reliable solution. Not only that, we can also take their traffic, because traditionally when you're running into VPNs, another issue that commonly comes up is that you need to make a decision. Do I want to split tunnel that traffic and really lose out on some of the security because I don't have visibility into everything that's happening? Or do I want to risk seeing performance issues at my location because now all the traffic's coming back there? With Kato, when the traffic gets to the POP, we run it through our security engine, send it directly out to the internet, and the only traffic going back to your sites is the traffic that actually matters. So that's going to make a big difference when you talk about home users, especially post-COVID, and you try to shift your solution into being able to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more. Jerry, I want to thank you for your time, and I think we're passing it back to Taylor for our third poll.
Yes. So to continue our polls and continue this awesome engagement you guys have been doing, when does your organization plan on evaluating SD-WAN? Within 3 months, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9+, or maybe you've already done it, especially with what has happened in the past couple months here, but definitely curious in what your thoughts are. I'm going to again leave this open for just a few more seconds as more results are coming in. And actually, it looks like a lot of you have already implemented an SD-WAN solution, so that's awesome. Definitely, again, something that we have found very useful. I know, again, Joe, Jerry, thank you guys so much, and I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan.
Thanks, Taylor. Next up, we've got Tony Scribner from Entirety. We've got a lot to kind of pack in, so Tony, if you're on, if you want to just dive right into it, because you guys do quite a lot, and I'm sure you got a lot of good stories, so go for it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I will keep it quick. So my name is Tony Scribner. I'm a senior solution architect with Entirety, and I've been with Entirety for about 10 years now. So who is Entirety? We are a managed services provider with over 3,300 customers, enabling their business to move faster with less risk. We host business applications for our customers either in one of our 14 data centers or in a public cloud like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, and providing a lot of managed services to help people ensure that their infrastructure and their applications are always available. We have over 1,000 employees and a lot of technical certifications, including over 170 certifications within the public cloud space. And talking about managed services, there's one little snippet that kind of shows the breadth of managed services, and that is that we manage over 25,000 databases. So if we go to the next slide, what are our managed services and how do we provide them? So starting from the bottom, we may be providing services out of one of our 14 data centers. We may be working with customers that have their own data center or co-locate in another data center. So either on premises or off premises infrastructure and applications, or they may exist inside of Azure or AWS. And the services we provide really go kind of up the stack, starting with cloud operations, which are generally thought of as your basic sysadmin type operations. So ensuring that infrastructure is backed up, ensuring that infrastructure and applications are patched, monitoring insights, which ensures that we have a very useful and deep insight into how your infrastructure and applications are running, getting into as deep as what your business processes, how they're running, and how the interactions are occurring. We offer recovery services. So if you're running infrastructure or applications on premises or in another data center or in one of the public clouds or even in one of our data centers, right, ensuring that a geographic issue in that region doesn't bring down your application. We also supply a wide variety of security and compliance managed services, so ensuring that your applications remain safe, and if you subscribe to a particular compliance framework, or at least just align with one, that you're indeed directly in line with that. And then we provide application management, for example, doing DevOps on AWS or even on top of VMware-based infrastructures. And as I mentioned before, database management. And then we generally allow you to consume these in one of 3 tiers: standard, advanced, or premier, essentially meaning that the amount of tasks we take on and we take off your plate grows as you go up in the tier, or if you want to do something kind of more on demand or as a project based, we can do that as well.
So Tony,
yes.
what are some of those daily chores that businesses are asking partners like Entirety to kind of take off their shoulders? What would be some good examples?
So that's a great question, and it's quite a wide spectrum. But customers usually come in either at one end of that spectrum, right? So it might be some of your lower level daily tasks that are simply too onerous now for a customer to take on, like patching, keeping up with patching. What happens when my patches fail? What's my patch compliance rate? That's something we're commonly asked to take over. Backups are another one. Ensuring that my backups run, what's the remediation when my backups fail, what is my backup success rate, those kinds of tasks on the lower end. And then we see a lot of customers come in at the higher end. For example, I have a number of databases, and the people that write my code really care for those databases, and we've kind of outgrown that. So we need a real DBA to get in here and either make things run better or just keep my operations running smoothly.
Almost kind of like helping the organization refocus their priorities. Where are people spending their time in this nowadays is really important. So yeah, correct. Thank you. I think the other thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit was, with all of the different layers and different insights and different services, what are some of the key factors, the key reasons that people are going to the cloud or consuming cloud resources?
That's another great question, and I think the number one thing that I see now, especially in the midst of this COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, and on the other side, we see a lot of CapEx avoidance, right? So even current customers that were really heavy colo centric and they like to do it themselves and supply their own infrastructure, don't want to spend those capital dollars anymore. And so they're really looking at a way to turn those into an operational expense. That's one big area. And the second big area is really within security and compliance, right? So the landscape has changed, and the way companies are doing work within the company and amongst other companies has changed. And it's widely broadening that sphere of where I have to think about security and how I continue to meet my compliance standards. So I think those are two big areas that we see today and we suspect will continue.
Yeah, sounds everything, trying to keep the business nimble and agile along those routes, but then also keeping up with, like you said, security recommendations or compliance frameworks. I'm thinking things like even, I think you guys have a practice to help out align with NIST frameworks, and while they might not be required to do that, it is a really good core competency that you can help them say, we want to do these best practices like CIS Top 20 and NIST. Maybe a little bit of insight as to how you go about doing that.
Yeah, we do. So that is a managed services that we offer. We call it compliance as a service, right? So the number one thing that generally starts to bog down an organization when you're talking about compliance and align into a particular framework, I like to use PCI a lot. PCI is something generally people know a lot about. You know, it has 12 domains, and each of those domains have a lot of things that a company needs to adhere to, and it's very difficult to track. So a major part of that service is a tool used for tracking those services with the ability to create heat maps in areas where maybe our compliance isn't as strong as it should be or isn't compliant at all. And then using that information in an interpretation, how do we get from point A to point B, and tracking those tasks, right? So either fixing the situation so now we're compliant, or what are the compensating controls that I have in place or need to put in place that would satisfy an auditor. So that is it's very difficult, especially when you're tracking more than one framework, to understand where you are within those compliance frameworks. So that tool and that service is very popular.
Yeah, that's great. And I think just that collaboration between maybe the IT department and risk management and the customer with a provider, that you guys do this day in and day out for a wide range of customers, it helps bring that extra value in. And sometimes we need to be held accountable in order to keep moving forward. So in our last 60 seconds here, any kind of final thoughts on what to expect or what should customers ask managed service providers? Things like, you know, what SLAs are important, callbacks. What, from your perspective, what should customers be asking their MSP for?
Yeah, so, you know, SLAs I think are a very important topic, right? So you're consuming a service, whatever that may be. There's probably some metrics based on performance or availability that are critical to keep your business up and going. So certainly you need some guarantees along those lines. Maybe some response, right? So when I need the help, what's the response going to be to get that help? We view those as table stakes, and I think the fault with SLAs, though absolutely necessary, are they're totally reactive in nature. So we're seeing what we're providing out, and what we're seeing is really more along the lines of GLAs or guidance level agreements, right? So being more reactive to understand what's going on within my infrastructure, my applications, how is the growth happening, and where am I going to be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now? So rather than waiting for a failure and then having to go look for a credit, how can we keep you from having a failure? So that's the way we see the industry going, and that's we started providing GLAs almost 2 years ago. So the SLAs are important, don't get me wrong, and everyone will provide the SLAs. But again, they're reactionary. We like the proactive nature of GLAs.
Proactive in this type of environment, the best way to stay on top of things. Tony, thank you for the time. It's been really helpful. Taylor's going to launch our next poll, and let's keep our session moving here.
Awesome. So the next poll should be live. So where does your production environment live? So again, feel free, submit your votes. Definitely very curious to see. I know that Tony's probably very curious to see too, from our audience, what their environment does look like. So again, it's, you know, all of them are great and all of them work for different organizations. It's just really cool to see, you know, who's doing what And again, if there's even potential that, there's movement to go full cloud, or even if, I see there's a few who are submitting that they're on premise, if there's, potential evaluation to do more hybrid. And I'm going to close the poll and share the results very briefly. I'm actually very surprised no one put public cloud, but awesome. It does look like it was a tie between hybrid cloud and on-premise. So definitely awesome. Thank you guys again for sharing your result, or pardon me, for voting for us to share your results. And I'm going to turn it back over to Joe Mauk to introduce our next expert.
Excellent. Thank you, Taylor. I'm going to take this time to introduce Jamal Savoir from 8x8. He's a channel sales engineer, and give him a few seconds to go through some slides for 8x8.
Thank you very much, Joe. My name is Jamal Savoir, and I'm the Director of Sales Engineering for 8x8's channel program on a global basis. And my team of engineers works with partners like C3 to help position, understand the opportunity with 8x8 solutions, and really help to qualify and differentiate 8x8 in the grand space of unified communications, contact center, et cetera. So just a little bit about 8x8. We are a 17+ year unified communications as a service provider, or UCaaS provider. And over that time, we've gone from handling residential to small business to mid-market to enterprise to global companies with UCaaS and CCaaS, with our largest implementation being around 40,000 seats globally. So we've grown up in this space. Our solution is born in the cloud, and we hold several patents on our technology, everything from security and compliance to disaster recovery and business continuity. So it's a really full-featured solution, and it is a single cloud technology platform that serves, again, that unified communications, contact center, and meeting solutions. So as you evaluate your opportunities or your options for cloud enabling your communications in your organization, 8x8 can provide all those different tools and benefits for you. We've been recognized by Gartner, being an 8-time Magic Quadrant leader for UCaaS. We're really the only company that has that accolade, and we're also a 5-time Gartner Magic Quadrant challenger for contact center. So that's a brief overview of 8x8 as a solution, and we really drive that one system of engagement, not only for your engagement from your company to your customers, but also within your company among your employees, to make sure that they have reliable calling communications, reliable messaging communications, reliable meetings, and also those contact center services that allow them to engage and integrate with your business systems like Salesforce, NetSuite, or other CRM solutions. So some other key benefits of our platform. Again, having that platform approach allows us to have the right plan and service package for each role within your organization. So as you look at your customer support department, or your sales department, or your marketing department, they may have different needs or different approaches to how they handle their day-to-day communications. And our packages are designed to be easily mixed and matched, so you get a value for the system without having to spend the highest seat price for the most features for everyone in the environment. So if you look at this little diagram here, you see things like X2, X4, X8. Those are our packages that bundle our unified communications and contact center services. And again, you can mix and match those throughout your organization. The key here is allowing you to move at the speed of your employee and customer expectations. It really is all about speed, and especially as we talk about what we've had to all experience with COVID and having to work from anywhere on a moment's notice, all the way to when we discuss reentry plans and look at how work might change over time. These sorts of services and capabilities benefit your employees no matter where they work.
Next slide, Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and key to everyone's communication needs today are security, privacy, and compliance concerns. As you know, there are different things depending on your industry. You may have to be HIPAA compliant or CP&I compliant, GDPR compliant if you happen to do business with customers that are spread across the globe, particularly in Europe, or even if you happen to do business in California, there are new services new compliance rules around something called CCPA. So 8x8 maintains these compliances. We maintain these security certifications. We go through great lengths to make sure they're third-party verified. and we can provide that level of security, compliance, and really the avoidance of risk for all of our customers when it comes to security and compliance with our tools. And that could mean anything from data at rest to data in motion, to privacy, to access rules, to authentication methods and things like that. So really secure, compliant platform across all of our different forms of communication.
And Jamal, I want to hit on a couple things. You know, first of all, the way you guys license is very beneficial to end users, because as you said earlier, if you're looking maybe at a contact center, but you're not quite sure what your requirements are going to be 2 years from now versus what they are now, you can always start at a certain level and move forward and gain more of those requirements that your company needs. So I love the fact that you guys are very transparent and flexible on your licensing. One thing I do want to bring up here on your compliances is I don't see PCI, and I know you guys are PCI compliant. But when we start talking about users working from home, contact center agents working from home, discuss a little bit about what you guys can do globally, and then also to ensure that those contact center agents or even business users can stay compliant.
Yeah, that's a very important topic you bring up there, Joe. And for contact center users specifically, you know, there are lots of situations where organizations used to, you know, be able to keep all those agents in one place, and maybe their security, their PCI was depending on where the agents were located, and they had different hardware solutions or local network-based solutions for maintaining PCI compliance. What 8x8 provides on a cloud basis is the ability to descope PCI entirely from the contact center, no matter where that agent happens to be working from. So we have an option called 8x8 Secure Pay. It allows the agent to stay on the phone with the customer while the customer inputs their credit card details in a secure fashion. The agent can't hear it. It's never recorded. You don't have to rely on agent activity to manually pause or resume the recording, and you don't have to worry about any API integration. It's really done on the back end at a very secure level and completely removes PCI concerns from the contact center.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to change gears here because, you know, we're talking about people working from home, and one thing that we have not hit on is your ability to engage customers with an existing Microsoft Teams environment. So if you could spend a few minutes and talk about how 8x8 is engaging your platform to work with Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, we've seen Gartner's estimate that that there are 85 million daily active users on Microsoft Teams. So that's a huge market. And what Teams users really enjoy is the collaboration tools of Teams, the ability to integrate with their OneNote and their SharePoint and those sorts of things. But Microsoft's calling plans have their limitations, and the feature set for enterprise telephony within Teams is limited. So what 8x8 has done is create a direct routing service called 8x8 Voice for Microsoft Teams that allows users to stay at the center of that experience. So they don't have to add any add-ons, plugins, widgets on the desktop. It stays the entire clean Microsoft Teams interface, but it allows them to access 8x8's global telephony platform. That means we have direct routing to 38 countries for PSTN. We have coverage for dial plans that can allow you to call 47 countries at a flat rate. And overall, we have over 120 countries where we can reach with DIDs and toll-free numbers. So it gives you much more of a flexible architecture for your communications in terms of inbound and outbound calling with your Microsoft Teams, along with all of 8x8's great features and functions from an enterprise telephony perspective.
Yeah, and when you look at Microsoft dial plans and only supporting about 10 or 11 countries, using somebody like 8x8 to inject that dial tone into Teams definitely makes sense. I'd like you to take a second and maybe talk about 8x8 and maybe a use case or case study on how you guys have been able to help a company that maybe was not prepared to move users to home, and how you guys were able to work with those guys.
Yeah, one really good example is we had a company that was responsible for fleet management for critical service delivery, like food service delivery, fleet management for public transportation. And they had 200 contact center agents that had to go from working in an office to working from home within 48 hours. So we were able to spin up the 8x8 contact center solution, get all those users prepped and ready to go and active on the platform in 48 hours so they could remain productive and provide those critical services. We also had an even more critical situation. You know, around the world, not everyone got an advance warning about the work from home situation. So in a foreign country, where users were expected to go and work from home same day. We actually spent the weekend and turned up about 3,000 users for a company that had to have those workers working from home immediately. So that's the value of the cloud. It's the ability to be agile. And many of our customers, they may have been considering longer term plans for business continuity and disaster recovery. But in today's world, you have to be able to turn on a dime, and 8x8 can provide that flexibility.
And I just want to hit on something. Did you mention earlier that you have the ability to allow your customers to dial 47 countries without international charges?
That's correct.
At a flat rate?
That's correct. Our plans X4 and up. So if you'll see X1, X2, X3, X4, but X4 through X8 all include calling to 47 countries at a flat rate.
That's crazy. Well, thank you for that. One last question, and I know we're kind of hitting a lot on contact centers. When you do decouple those employees from a local centralized location and now they're working from home, what kind of tools does 8x8 have to ensure that their customers are being satisfactorily taken care of, and then as well as being able to look at your agents and ensure that they're being productive?
Yeah, there's a full suite of analytics tools, and the ones that are targeted at contact center supervisors and agents is really our quality management and speech analytics solution. It provides two really important functions. One of those is, supervisors need to know what their employees are up to in a contact center environment, and our speech analytics tool includes something that's live agent monitor. So it allows supervisors, no matter where they are, to listen in on calls with agents, but also view their screens. So if you have to do some critical monitoring for compliance reasons, or you're used to being able to look over that agent's shoulder and help them out, you can now do that from a remote location. The other piece of that equation is the speech analytics, and that's a post-call analytics tool. So as the calls are recorded, we can transcribe, identify keywords, identify trends, and really allow quality managers to find the calls that are important for those quality assurance scores and making sure agents are providing the customer experience that they're looking for.
Jamal, thank you. 8x8 is definitely a one-stop shop for UCaaS and CCaaS. I know that I've worked with you guys quite a bit, and I really appreciate your time today and kind of going into a little bit of detail of what you guys have to offer. Taylor, I'm going to pass it back off to you or Matthew here.
We're actually going to toss it over to Matthew. Due to timing, we definitely want to get the open panel discussion underway. So I know Matthew has a few questions for the expert panelists here. So go ahead, Matthew.
Cool, thank you. Only have a few minutes left, and we talk a lot about technology today and platform and stuff. I'm gonna take a little bit of a right turn. I want to ask you guys about what do you think needs to change culturally within IT to adapt to the current environment. And let me tell you what I mean by this. I'm gonna give you an example. There's a lot of organizations out there that still feel like physical proximity to their servers, so their infrastructure still means something in these days. It's still this held belief from a lot of organizations that may not be as progressive. I think those cultural barriers, those need to die. I'm curious as to some of these other cultural things within IT that you think need to change to adapt to the current environment. Tony, I'm actually going to toss it over to you first, so go ahead.
Well, so the situation you described before, we call those internally server huggers, right? So we have to have our own servers, and we have to have them right next to us. And we've seen a good sized departure from that already, which certainly is kind of one thing that had to die. But it's really hard for IT professionals to let someone else care for their applications, right? So even when you're talking about something that I talked about before, like patching, they have to trust the provider to let that go. They don't like to do it because it's a pain, but they still have to have the trust that someone else is going to be able to do that as well as they do it and care for their company like it's part of their own company. So that's kind of a big departure as well. It's not just where things are, but how they're cared for. Certainly needs to kind of expand.
Franco, how about yourself? I want to toss you in here for a moment. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, I'd have to agree 100% with Tony in regards to that. the way I look at it is really, I mean, a lot of organizations, I think you touched on it earlier as you kicked off the call, right? The culture is shifting towards, work from home, being remote. And I think when it comes to just overall, leveraging, the technologies and the support that's really out there for you. Traditionally in the past, we haven't been able to provide certain types of, I think, support when it comes to helping customers or IT co-manage their environments, where it's real simple, easy to use, easy to manage, and you have that type of resource to provide you that support, while they can actually engage in some of the more mission critical or revenue generating types of projects. And so ultimately I just think just the environment by itself with what we're given with COVID-19 kind of promotes just you got to kind of let go.
Jamal, what do you think? Cultural changes that need to happen within IT to really keep up with this in today's environment?
What I really like about the way IT professionals approach this whole topic is, they want to be relied upon, but they're also risk averse, and they understand that their challenges are beyond the scope of what they have to do with today, right? They have to do more with less. I definitely have run into a lot of PBX huggers, in the past. But where we see the opportunity to overcome that is with things like simplicity, flexibility, and also bringing that professional implementation up front. If they understand that 8x8 as a provider is going to bring a professional implementation and really handhold the delivery of those services, but then also give them the tools to manage it going forward, it's like a breath of fresh air, right? They can see that, hey, this is not going to be you're not just going to send me some phones and have me plug them in without project managing and showing that it's going to be delivered in a way that's going to make it easy for their users to transition. So I think it's a healthy sort of idea that they want to be concerned, but I think we have ways to overcome that, show them that we can be reliable, flexible, and make it simple for them to administer long term.
Jerry, final thoughts on this before we get into giveaways and such. Cultural changes, what do you think?
So I think a lot of that happens organically. Realistically, like basically what's going to happen, right, is essentially 4 or 5 companies within the same realm are going to take that leap of faith, if you will, and then all of a sudden the rest of the industry is going to start shifting. We've already seen it over and over again with email, CRM, voice. All of those things are just naturally happening, and the reality is that you're either going to shift with them or you're going to become serious. You're going to be left behind while everybody else has shifted the marketplace to the direction that the future is headed. So as a business, you have to talk about strategy and think about that strategy and make sure that you're moving in the right direction. And everyone on this panel will say that that's definitely what's taking place industry-wise.
I'm going to pass over to Taylor in a moment. I think if there's one last thing I would say, it's you have to a certain extent, examine your own biases. How did you get to this point? Maybe you're talking to other organizations in your space. If you've been doing things the same way for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe it's time to look outside of your own 4 walls for outside influences. So panel, thank you so much. Taylor, go ahead.
Awesome. So now it is the fun prize time. So we did a random name generator. So congratulations to Ted Klein for the JBL Flip presented by 8x8. Congratulations, Pete Becker, for the $100 American Express gift card. Congratulations, Joe DeWitt, for the Ring Doorbell Generation 2 presented by Entirety. And then last but not least, congratulations, I'm sorry if I botched this name, Ben Vandermaiden, for the $50 Amazon gift card provided by PAX8. And then just last closing remarks for, again, anyone who has any questions or would like to follow up with any of our awesome expert panelists, please feel free to reach out to our C3 team. We definitely, again, would love to get you guys, where you want to be with your business and technology solutions. And there are handouts for you to download as well if you'd like those too. For the winners, we will reach out to you here momentarily. And other than that, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.